Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. I'm Chris. It is the 12th of September today, 2024, and today, amazingly, I've got with me Tom from Raiven. So hi Tom, how are you doing?
Hi Chris, no, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. So tell me a bit about yourself, Tom, to start with.
I'm founder of Raiven AI. We basically are a company that helps organizations adopt AI, build their own AI solutions, and just generally make their workplaces more efficient.
Amazing. And obviously AI, it's on everyone's minds at the moment. So I'm going to start with a big question. Terminator, John Connor, Skynet, when's it happening?
I thought you were going to ask which side I was. When's it happening? I don't know. It's a good question. Is it already happening? I know you mentioned to me you've used some AI in preparing here. So is it already here? Am I being interviewed by AI? Are you an AI?
Absolutely. Well, if I'm honest, I did use AI for some of the questioning. So yeah, absolutely.
But no, I think maybe when you ask that question, it's a bit of a people ask it a lot, but it's quite a flippant question, isn't it? Really,
absolutely.
It's not really genuine, and maybe like we should split it down in a few different ways. And you think, well, I guess when you say Skynet, I think like monitoring is AI monitoring, is AI surveillance there? And I mean, I guess we are in this situation now where the technology is becoming available to do that. People are looking at ways to use it, but ultimately it's still designed by humans. So yeah, I mean, maybe there is a question for us as humans: do we design Skynet?
Yep.
No, when we watch the films, do we design it knowing, or do we choose not to?
True.
I tend to err on the side of let's choose not to. Let's put safety guards in, but I'm guessing there are probably people out there who watch Terminator and got a completely different message from that than
I always wonder where the number of people named John Connor has gone down quite rapidly recently. I mean, it is a show about the future of work, so I will ask the question. Do you think the concept of work as a whole is going to change in the next few years, up until the next 50 years?
Yeah, well, almost certainly. I think that's the same as like any technology advancement, I guess. So we talk about like industrial revolution very much changed the concept of work, for example. And when you had things like more looms coming in, like that changed the concept of work. And when you have more automated manufacturing lines, that changed the concept of work. The internet changed there's a lot of things that change the concept of work, but we've not really, I say not always, or maybe when we look back, we don't look at it and go, people asked these questions at the time. Maybe I'm not a historian actually. So maybe I should I'm on dangerous ground going down that route. But I think without a doubt it would change how we work. The question is, how do we make it change for the better, for one? And I guess if we start looking in timescales, 50 years plus, I guess there is this open question of does work exist at all at that point? I mean, because really, I guess one of the goals we have when we design AI, I'll say we at Raiven, I'll say, is to try and automate the chores, right? The things that are that are time consuming, that are either boring, frustrating, or they drain a lot of time, or they're things that a human couldn't really do on their own. They need a tool to assist them. So, I mean, if you took out all the chores of your job, is it work anymore? I don't know. Is it play? Is it fun? I don't know. So there is this whole view, I think, so there's a term coined by, I think his name's Aaron Bastani, for fully automated luxury communism, which is it's a great term, but
it's a brave term to have.
Yeah, it's a brave term as well, yeah. But I guess the real idea of it is that if you have AI to be able to fulfill a lot of the resource intensive tasks, so that feeding everyone, sheltering everyone, providing everyone with the resources they need, like a lot of, if you could automate all that, is there a need for people to work? And how would people's lives change? Would you use that time to fulfill yourself in other ways, more creatively, and or the like? So but I guess we won't know how long away we are until we get closer to it. Maybe that's the.
I mean, when I started, I did a lot of work with the NHS, and we always spoke about nurses and doctors being great at doing their jobs, and what we didn't want to do is invent technology that tried to replace that. We wanted to take away the mundane, the automated. Try to automate it, to take away those tasks. We don't want nurses and doctors spending their times looking at Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
We want them doing the jobs they need to do. So I suppose that's the point you get into. And something I did some looking into before was this idea of sort of digital twins and a replica of yourself. Have you come across the digital twins?
Yeah. I've come across it in a couple of the term used in a couple of ways, but this way I've heard as well. Yeah, and I guess it leads to some interesting questions, but
Do you think it will? So I always talk about it in terms of, at the moment we're going through a period of AI where we're just getting it to do individual one-off tasks, but eventually we'll move to agentic AI, where we can almost create an agent version of ourselves. And I mean, you nodded there. Not everyone will know what agentic AI is. Would you mind just explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll try and do it in a sort of brief way. Essentially, the instead of us talking about models as a whole, we're talking about your AI acting as its own autonomous agent, as we call it. That you could give it a task, it will go out, it will complete that task, it works out how it's going to do that task, it learns from it. It might have to communicate with other humans or other agents along the way and know how to deal with that. So it's to be honest, it's probably what most people, when they imagine AI, think of. Most people think of like robots that could go off and do those things. So it probably is quite natural for people to understand that agentic AI is probably how you normally think about AI, rather than how it gets integrated into software, for example.
Yeah, and how do you do that? How do you create that sort of thing?
An agentic AI?
How do you go about building towards that? What sort of things do you do?
Well, to be honest, there are a lot of questions that are opened up by designing systems in that way. But very simply, there are very simple ways of modeling an agent, which is just going, well, it has to have an understanding of the world around it, an understanding of what actions it can take, and an understanding of how its actions influence that world. And then from that, it also has to take an objective and understand how its actions are progressing it towards that objective. But like I sort of said as well, like sometimes to reach that objective, it has to communicate with other agents, with other humans, where it doesn't know their view of the world, it doesn't know their objectives. So you enter this. There are actually a whole load of questions that come out that I mean, we face it every day as humans, really, like how we interact. Like I don't know what you're thinking right now. For example, we're having a conversation, and how we negotiate with people as well. Like we negotiations, people have different objectives from those negotiations, but how to communicate and reach an agreement. So there are a lot of questions where you go, well, when you're designing an agentic AI, you've got to understand, well, how should it behave in all of these social situations which we take for granted, because we've naturally learnt them as we grow, and I guess we grow as social animals. So there's things that we're not even maybe aware that happen, and it's things like, well, how do you align to the values of people around you so that you're not upsetting everyone? That's the thing, like cultural norms.
I was going to say that I suppose it's only like someone being dropped in a completely different culture that they're not used to.
So
we experience it as humans.
So you can experience that as a human. It's it makes it a challenge. And then also, like I said, the negotiation side, like when you're then in even outside of negotiation, if you know you're performing your task, but your task is, or how well you do your task is dependent on maybe hundreds, thousands of other agents whose objectives you don't know fully, how do you act to them? How do you act in general? Like there's a lot of quite deep questions you can ask about it that I think people have only really touched the surface of in research. So
and I suppose something I was looking into as well as kind of the ethical side to it, and I don't want to dive too deep into the ethics, because I think you can get kind of down a rabbit hole with it. But one of the things I did come across was the idea that in 50 years' time there could be a job role for an AI ethicist. It could be a full-time job role. Have you come across that at all?
No, as in to like teach the AI ethics, you mean, or like
to decide on what ethics goes into the AI tools that are there?
Yeah. So no. I think I've come across it vaguely, but not as a full-on job role. I think like I've come across it as the idea of, as designers, you have to
think about it. Yeah.
But then there's also there's another philosophical question alongside that of well, society's ethics change over time as well.
Right,
To what
that's
extent do
Yeah.
you want to hard code the ethics, or do you need your agent, in this case, to learn the ethics as they change and adapt to them? So that like I said, there's a lot of really deep philosophical questions, but particularly when you start thinking about agentic AI, there's so many things that I don't think we have up until, well, I don't think even now we've quite got the technology to test these at scale. And then there's a question about, back in ethics, should we test them at scale? How do we test them ethically at scale? I guess is
absolutely. I mean, I came across at some point the idea of automated cars, and if an automated car was driving along, and it knew it was going to crash, and it knew on one hand it would hit a small child, and on the other case it would hit 5 adults. Who makes the legal decision about what the AI decides to do? It's really difficult.
Yeah, it's like the AI trolley problem, really, isn't it? And then, yeah. And then the other, I guess, the follow up is then who's accountable for it as well, because sometimes, I guess, there's an interesting one there where we can sometimes accept more that a human's made a mistake and is held accountable for it.
Yes,
it's very hard to like. I don't think we feel comfortable as humans if human life is impacted by an AI saying that AI, that car, made that mistake. Let's lock that car up. Like, it doesn't really, it doesn't really make sense. So,
because in today's world, we talk about those ethical responsibilities being dropped on programmers or developers, but probably that's going to become a legal job in its own right and move outside of the programming sphere, I suppose.
I mean, I'd say with the way self-driving cars are already on roads in some areas of the world, and they've already created some problems in some areas of the world. I think like it should already be probably something that people are considering, particularly if that's a technology that we're looking to roll out universally. Like it seems like there are a lot of questions in there that you're not going to answer quickly, so you better start now, or when/if it happens, you're gonna have a lot of lawyers running around not knowing what to do, and there'll probably be quite a lot of injustice in that period as well. So it's I think that's one thing that tends to frustrate me about maybe technology as a whole is when there are these legal questions. Sometimes it takes quite a while for the law to catch up with the technology. I think like we're only really beginning to catch up with the internet now in our laws. Like there's for quite a while.
That's true. Social media and
so really like the problem by the time the technology's out, it's too late to try and it's not too late, but it's definitely you're definitely going to create an uncomfortable time if you've not already thought about it before the technology's out.
Do you think we could learn lessons from the way things have gone with social media and the bit in the news and the way we handle the AI side of things?
Yes. I think some of the questions are more like we can't really think short-termist when we're making technologies like this that we know are going to influence a large number of people.
Of course,
it's very. I feel like sometimes the justifications of them are going, well, short-term it has a positive, but we don't really know what the long-term impact is, and I think that there's a thing there where when we design it, we need to think longer term for one, but I also think if we don't know, that's not necessarily a problem, but it's definitely something that flags we need to monitor it ongoing and be able to react to it and deal with negative
connotations
of it. So anything that's unexpected that seems to come from it, we're facing, I guess, new areas, things that no one has any experience of. So you have to be able to understand what's going on and make a reaction to it.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. So how do you think? I mean, I've got a question down here about traditional offices and the 9 to 5 working day? Do you think that's going to rapidly change soon, in 20 years, 50 years? We'll see. What's your viewpoint on it?
Sooner, I think it's probably already started changing really since, pressured a bit by lockdown, I think, but like people have definitely started to see technology help collaboration online. I think that is useful. I think there's still an element of we are inherently social people, so we kind of there is a benefit from having at least some in-person human contact with people. I find So then there is a question like about other new technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality, about how can they help you collaborate at distance, for example, as well. I think there's some positive thoughts about like where that could go, but there's also some questions about there's a danger that we try and remove that human interaction and just distance it over through a network, which might then decrease the quality of the interactions. So.
Yeah, I always have the opinion that it's very difficult to have a completely remote workforce. I've seen some models and I've spoken to some people who do it. I don't think anyone's quite totally figured that out yet. I think that human to human connection side of it's quite important. Do you think the AI side of it is going to remove that human to human connection in any way?
I think I think there's a danger it does. I think I think that maybe I'm going to drag that back to your, like, we talked briefly about digital twins earlier, but we didn't actually follow up on it. There is a danger we do because of technologies like a digital twin. So if I could train a AI version of me that could appear on camera as me, talk as me, so reference my knowledge, there's this temptation there where you say, well, if it can take all my meetings for me, why not? And I'll just do what I feel like. And I talk as someone who knows very well that if I just do what I feel like all the time, it doesn't actually end well for me. And I think like there is value in having interactions, even if you don't necessarily feel that you need to at the time, like that you don't necessarily see the value at the time. Sometimes in reflection you see it, and I think there's a danger if we keep going, oh no, talk to my AI, and then we don't really build the relationships we're trying to build with people, because work is about relationships, but I think human life in general is about relationships. So I don't think, I'd hesitate to say that there's anyone that wants to have a life devoid of any social interaction. But I had a funny conversation this morning about the fact that when I left school originally, obviously you write with a pen and a pencil quite a lot. About 2 to 3 years after leaving school, particularly doing a computer science degree, you pick up a pen and pencil to write and you think, how did I do this for any length of time? Because your writing's gone kaput, you're not used to it, your hand's tired in no time whatsoever. And this morning I was having a funny conversation because we were typing stuff out. We were mending a presentation at work, basically. And what I realised is I feel my risk of writing continuous prose is going through a problem, because I'm getting used to dropping stuff into the AI tools and saying, turn this into formal text for me. Have you obviously someone who uses AI quite a bit? Have you noticed that? So I've actually controversially make a conscious effort not to use AI assistants for things like my language tasks in general, because my argument for it is that when I'm trying to communicate something, there's got to be there's something that I'm intentionally trying to communicate, and I need to work out what that is, and process a little bit. It helps mentally process it in my head to put it into words. So like, to me, I think the action of writing it out helps me compartmentalize like the thought, So I kind of avoid at the moment I've done quite well of avoiding using AI assistants for that. Whether that will continue is another matter. But I think particularly for communication and for planning, I tend to think like the exercise is less about the writing down and more about how my brain's processing the information and summarizing it like that. There's benefit for me going through that thought process, whereas I think like we do sometimes use it maybe more on the code side when you go, well, oh god, I've got to write another like I'm gonna write a sort algorithm. I know how to do it, and I'm not gonna gain anything from typing it all out. Oh, okay, here's the code for it. There, you just scan through and go, yeah, that matches. But then there is an argument of like whether we should just have templates and better organized code. Maybe in general, maybe that's a sign we should have a better code library. So
is it formal and informal messages you won't put through?
Yeah.
So all of them blanket.
Yeah, but I mean, I have the benefit of, I come at that as well from a point of privilege of being English speaking, first language speaking to English speaking.
Okay,
so I think
that
there is an argument for definitely for people who if they're uncomfortable with the language, there maybe they can to use it to verify that. But I think if the thought process is useful, and the danger is if you always rely on it, you will never learn the thing that you're trying to learn because you don't worry about it. Like I mean, one of the drivers to learn is a necessity. So if there's never a need to learn it, then and it's hard for you, why would you learn it? So so I don't know. I try and tell myself that the struggle is useful. It's doing something for me.
I suppose, yeah. Can you become that was what I was concerned about, is have I become really lazy? Do you think that's to do with your own learning style, or do you think it's to do with
maybe I think it's it might be because I did a maths degree,
right, okay,
and I don't know if you had a maths teacher like this, but one of the things they tell you when you're struggling to work it out and you're going, this is boring, this is frustrating, I don't get it, they go, well, it's that struggle that will like you'll spend ages struggling, and then at some point something will click and you'll go, and it's all that struggle that made you get to that point of understanding. It's not it's not just a magic thing that happens. It's like you have to probe it through.
Of course, yeah. Sometimes the anticipation is greater than the event.
Yeah,
itself.
You say of course, but you also know maths teachers, maths lecturers are probably known for being quite sadistic. So like, I wouldn't.
No, that's
maybe
amazing.
they just liked watching us suffer. I can't say for sure.
I suppose. I mean, that's really interesting because I've got a note down here about empathy and understanding, and within a workplace, I think. One of the things in particular, a field I obviously work in is culture and the understanding of culture within organisations. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is we talk about the risk of AI, and we've spoken about it a lot here about digital twins and it removing us from human to human contact. But what about the flip side of it and the idea of how do we understand the empathy and the feeling of hundreds of people at once? Does it give us the capabilities to do that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few interesting questions there. I think like so I mean we're working on a project where there's a little question about this as well, where it's more to do with like the health and safety side, but the belief is that I'm going to talk about that part first and see where that leads.
Sure.
Like the belief is that if people are feeling more energized, feeling in a better mood, then they're less risky they're less likely to make a risky action, which means the environment is safer. Then so and there's an ethical question here as well that we've not worked out yet whether we go ahead with this.
Okay.
It's then there's a chance of, so if you can ask people, well, how are you feeling today? If your AI can ask that, how are you feeling today? How energized are you? And then it flags that some people are tired. There comes a point where you go, well, okay, actually there's a higher risk on site at the moment because there's more people who are at a slightly lower level of energy or feeling less happy. And then there's a point of going, well, at what point, and this is where it becomes an ethical question of whether we should do it or not, because at what point should you say, well, actually this person is dangerously tired, they should not be on site at all, because then you're introducing like a level of that Skynet level of surveillance to it. And you're then also encouraging people, because the whole point of this was to get honest feedback of people's feelings and moods and energy levels. If they know that it's going to be used that way, then they won't answer honestly. Everyone will suddenly be very energetic. And another flip side, I mean, also I should say that being necessarily really happy, really energetic sometimes isn't a good thing. I've had too much coffee. Let me go rag it around on a forklift truck or something like that. No, so I mean, there's things like that, and I think there's something to explore there about longer term data. Like, you can work out how do you make a work environment positive for people. I think that's one side of it. I think that there is definitely something to be looked into there. I don't know how much I think some of that is purely maybe use the data power of AI, but it's a human thing that has to be investigated. But then if you're talking about improving empathy with AI, I guess then the other question is, well, from the scientific side, I mean, like we talked about agentic AI, about how they have to learn how to interact with each other. So when we have to start deeply studying how to interact positively with other people, or how agents have to interact positively with each other, we learn how people interact with each other. We learn more about ourselves and how we interact, and how we could be more empathic and behave in a way that's better for all. So there's that positive side, and I guess then the third side is saying, well, if I've reduced the stress levels of my job, I don't have to do as many boring, time-consuming chores. Am I just naturally going to be happier, have more time to spend talking to other people, and then naturally being more empathic, because the more interactions I have, the more I'm learning about interacting with people. So I mean, I think there's three ways there. You could look at it as having a positive effect on empathy and work environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose with all this coming out, I have to ask the question as well. How do we prepare the future generations for what's about to come? I mean, we're talking about what's going to happen in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's going to be people living this. So how do we prepare them for it, and how do we avoid the social media issues that we've got now in the AI side of things?
Yeah. Oh, it's a tough
question.
A very tough question, because like I said, like sometimes we don't know if there is a problem, and we don't know the long-term impacts, but we do know things like, so we do know that, like with social media, we do know social media is going to be a part of people's lives for a substantial period of time, for example. So we do know that AI will be a part of people's lives for a substantial period of time. So it is our duty to educate people on it, because it will be part of their lives. Like, you can't just suddenly say, no, you're not allowed to touch that, but now you're an adult, it's part of your life, and expect people to be able to adapt to it. So I think we have to both educate people on the concepts of AI as well, not just saying here is tools, use tools. I think there's positivity to letting people play with AI. There's positivity to letting them build things with AI, but I think you've got to also educate them on the concepts around what makes those things work. So, and then you've also got to be a little bit like I said, a little bit cautious, that because like I said, if you use those AI agents to some degree, there is this feeling that you could get a little bit lazy, and you don't go through the struggle that is necessary to learn. So there is
of course,
there is an element of balancing that as well. It's a difficult challenge how you balance it, what you teach people. But I think, like, if you teach people to play with AI, to build things with AI, that's one side that's good, the engineering side. And I think if you teach people the concepts of AI, then hopefully, I'd hope the two marry up at some point in the middle. Sure, I mean, but as well, I think, like we said, if the future is going to be full of more interpersonal skills, relationships, maybe it's also a chance to look at how well we teach soft skills.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, absolutely. And safety settings is something as well that people don't know that much about in terms of the AI side of things, and how they can, if you want to work with your kids or let your kids experience some of the AI principles. I don't know if you want to say a little bit about the safety settings, and I don't know how good they are, but
I think the problem with it at the moment, particularly like the AI assistants, there is almost always a way of getting around safety settings at the moment. Even if it's quite complicated to get around, there is a way of getting around it, because they've got a model that's trained on a broader range of things, so it's the same model, and they're trying to restrict it rather than training a model that's just devoid of all, has never referenced any of that material. So I think as long as that's the case, there's always that danger. Like, I don't think with the way they're designed, it's really possible to fully remove all backdoors. So there's always a danger. It is a case of, if you can choose a restricted one and make it very, very hard to get to that content and make sure that it stays that way, then maybe that's a positive. But I guess it's the same, like it's an interesting question as well, because we have the internet as well, which there's always been a problem as well around guardrails on the internet. It's alarming some of the things you can find on the internet, and you can get like your censorship tools to try and restrict access, but that they don't work 100% perfectly either. So and there's always ways around them. So it's I think it's a challenge we've faced for quite a while with technology. So, but I think it's more about responsible use. Maybe that's what we should think about. Like educated and responsible use is probably the better.
No, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we are coming to the end of the podcast, Tom. Anything else you wanted to mention, or anything else you wanted to say at this point?
No, enjoyed the questions. I was hoping we could have a longer discussion. There's plenty more.
There's plenty more. Maybe we'll need a part 2.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining today, Tom. Really, really appreciate it. Really glad you could join us. Some fascinating points on the ethical side of AI, on removing admin tasks and boring tasks, the human connection on it as well. If you enjoyed what you heard today, then please subscribe to the podcast, or follow us on socials as well, and you can find out. And Tom, again, a massive thank you, and maybe we'll get around to it at some point soon.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris.